Hi, and welcome to Connected Conversations for Creatives, a place for creatives like you to learn, grow, and connect. I'm your host, Jennifer Carr. Being a creative is a multifaceted undertaking, and if we let them, the sides that tend to require our non-creative attention can overshadow the art that we love and weigh us down. And whether we're thinking about the challenges our industries present, like for me personally, the business side of being a creative, or if we're struggling to embrace competition and in the process discover the ugly world of imposter syndrome, it's important we remember that there's so much more to being a creative than just having a free and artistic spirit. And what's more, if you create a healthy and stable network of other creatives, you don't have to confront these things on your own. And today I am happy to introduce you to a guest whose remarkable journey mirrors the essence of the modern creative spirit. From directing to acting on many different stages across America to embracing the ever-evolving landscape of artistic expression, our guest's story resonates with the fusion of art and business. He's a director, an actor, a writer, a teacher of the arts, an audiobook narrator, and he believes that the business of being a creative is a source of liberation rather than limitation. So providing us today with insights into the synergy between art and business is Alex Freeman. So welcome to the show, Alex.
Wow, Jennifer, what an introduction. Thank you so much. I'm
No,
so
thanks for
excited to
being
be here.
here. Good. I'm
Yeah.
glad. This is going to be a great conversation. I can just tell because you have so much experience and your hand is in different areas when it comes to the creative side of things. So I'm really looking forward to jumping in. But before we get into the heavy stuff, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I mean you definitely covered a lot of it. I am an audiobook narrator. I would say that's kind of the primary day to day what I'm most frequently working on is an audiobook. And the kind of like various extensions of voiceover that leads into. But yeah, I'm a director by training. I'm going to be in Wisconsin later this year, directing a production of A Christmas Carol. And on the side of that, it's been a life of side hustles throughout the last probably 15 years at this point, since going to school.
Did you set out to pursue like a diverse range of artistic expressions, or was it just kind of an evolution of sorts?
Definitely an evolution, because so if we go back even further than 15 years, if we go back like 22 years at this point, I wanted to be like a writer, became a really like clear goal and dream of my life. And then after a trip to Disney World with my family, I like seeing the way that people were reacting to the IP, and being like, oh man, how do I do that? How do I create stuff that like just deeply resonates emotionally with people? I didn't necessarily at 13 didn't necessarily have the words deeply resonates emotionally with people, but there was something about it that definitely appealed to me. And so then that kind of like led to, oh, what if I make films? Okay, great. If I want to get into film, I got to get into theater. And then once you get into theater, then it just kept snowballing from there and kind of being a lifelong evolution of, oh, this seems really interesting right now. I'm going to kind of pursue that path as far as it will lead.
That kind of seems like the creative brain at work. Like it is a constant, and I try not to get distracted by the shiny things. I actually was talking to a mindset coach the other day, and we were talking about how creatives do tend to get a little distracted by the next new and shiny thing. And it's true. But at the same time, I think there are just so many ways to use some of the skills just throughout the creative world, like you can
Mhm.
write and you can act and direct all on the same stage just about. So yeah,
Yeah.
I feel that.
Yeah, definitely. That is a true statement. And yeah, it's been very interesting of like this concept of like creating your own work, is so deeply within most creatives, no matter what the field is. Like even actors who theoretically like are stepping into a lot of work created by other people, and then here's the opportunity for you to add into this work, to be iterative on the work. um still finding the ways to like create opportunity for yourself is such a challenge that, yeah, as you try and seize it as it comes, uh perhaps you're distracting yourself from something else that you may have been wanting to pursue even 3 weeks before.
Right. And sometimes you just have to be like, stop, like one thing at a time, because it can get overwhelming. I know that, it looks really good at the front end, but it's like,
Mhm.
I may have taken on too many things at one time.
Yes, yes. I particularly feel that right now. I describe Thursdays as like the worst day of the week because I end up doing all of my jobs where I host a couple of podcast episodes. I have to work on an audiobook. I have to do some YouTube narration. And then I also have this like other like life of day job stuff where, trying to figure that all out and making it all happen.
Oh my gosh, yes. I had a children's book author approach me. I mean, this was several months ago, and he was like, would you do a reading? Just read it on YouTube or something. I was like, sure, that'd be great. It'd be fun. Just kind of a marketing opportunity for him. And it was a really cute book. And he said, hey, would you record the audiobook? Which I'm not an audiobook narrator. I'm not. But I love to do the crazy voices and that kind of thing. And I was
Mhm.
like, sure, it's fun. I love reading children's books, whatever. And so we've been going back and forth. And finally today I sent him my last go at it and said, here's the thing. September to October like is so full. We cannot pick this back up until November. So either love it or leave it. Like
Yeah.
this is where we are. Like we got to block off some time because I still have other jobs that I have to do.
Yep. Yeah. It's like the to-do
Yeah.
list is I wish I could spend a million hours
Yes.
on this single project,
Yes.
but unfortunately the calendar exists.
That is correct. Calendars and clocks. Oh my gosh. So the arts have always played a major role in my life. I've been a musician since I was a child. I love all kinds of music. I love writing, have always loved writing, has always been putting stuff on paper. And the very first career inventory I ever took when I was 19 said right off the bat, hey, you should be an actor or a writer. And I was just kind of like, that's funny because how unrealistic is that? Right. Like that's one of those things that you go, one in a million, right? There's no way that that would ever be for me. And so for the next, 21 years after that, it was kind of like, hey, how about I just get paid to do things that, aren't one in a million chances of doing anything
Mhm.
with it. And then 2 years ago, I kind of had this mental mind shift that said, hey, I'm going to do this. And now I'm about to publish my third book, which, I never in a million years would have dreamed that was a thing. So thinking about, those kinds of those thoughts and those mindsets and experiences, have you ever had to overcome similar, like the doubts and the narratives that say, hey, it'll never work for you?
Yes, all the time. Even this week, as things are going well, as I look at everything in my life, I'm like, yeah, things are good. You have work coming in. You have all of the things that a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, you would have pinched yourself that these things were happening, and yet here I sit, being like, well, this is the week they all find out I'm a fraud,
Right.
and it just ends. And it's very interesting because I think the pandemic factored into that for so many people, and myself included, of pre-pandemic, uh definitely looking back like 10 years ago, I was definitely living in that like starving artist, romantic kind of look at things. And over the last 5 years, then accelerated certainly by the pandemic, of just like, that's not fun, and that's not actually enabling me to create the things that I want to
Mhm.
create. And so really, really taking that opportunity to get serious about what do I want my life to look like, and then how do I get there, including things like, finding a wonderful day job that I'm so blessed to have, where I sell advertising for a theater website, which um, does not sound thrilling, and in many ways is not like the most thrilling thing that one could be doing, but it is providing space and a life that enables me to pursue the creative pursuits that I want to pursue. And I think that there's so many creatives that get caught up in the idea of like all or nothing in
Mhm.
in their creative life, that it's either I'm all in as an artist, or I'm all out and I'm just doing this other thing. And finding that path forward that is great this is going to be the priority in my life. And to make that the priority in my life, here's the other things that I need to make sure that I take care of so that my free time, my available time, most of my energies are going into the creative act.
Mm. I actually was having a conversation with myself, as I do regularly, and just kind of going through an inventory. I guess this was probably at the end of last week. And I was asking myself, I'm like, is it worth it? Because I have,
Mm.
so many irons and so many fires, and it's not the immediate returns that I would like to see. And, we always go in with these big expectations that it's going to be like a wow moment immediately. And, I kept saying, well, is it really worth it? And so then, like I told myself, I said, you kind of need to restructure, reframe that question, like, how badly do you want it? And
Mm.
that was kind of what I had to ponder, was how badly do I want it? Because if I want it bad enough, then whatever I'm doing is worth it.
Yeah.
And so, that was kind of an aha moment. I love having those sometimes, even if it's been, 2 years into the game, I'm like, oh yeah, no, it's still worth it. Keep pushing forward, because there are gains to be seen. Sometimes you just have to have that moment.
Yeah. Well, and it is so hard to see it when you're in the midst of it. That
Yes.
like you're struggling day to day. But if you are able to get that 30,000 foot view, if you are able to take a moment and reflect back and say, like, okay, 3 years ago, this is everything I could have imagined that I was doing. And especially, I think especially creatives and entrepreneurs, very similar in their mental makeup, just kind of what are they focused on. And it's so easy to just always be focused on the next thing that you lose sight of how far you've come.
True story. And I think, looking at the creative and the entrepreneur, like, you have to be one and the same. If
Mm-hmm.
you, in a lot of cases, like for me, self-published, or artists who are independently repped, they're not going out finding an agency to rep them, that kind of thing. And in the intro, I mentioned how the business side of being a creative can sometimes overshadow that art that we love.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, it's one of my biggest weaknesses, because my brain is so geared towards solving problems creatively and providing creative solutions. In some ways, the business side is not so easily attacked. And so you have to sit down and think through things, and make a budget and ask questions that need a
Mm-hmm.
straightforward answer. How have you managed to strike a balance there between that pragmatic demand and creative demand of the industry?
Yeah, I've really learned to love spreadsheets.
Ah.
Yeah.
I got twitches on that one. Sorry.
Yeah, no, and it's very funny because, like, it's those conversations that when you're 21, you would never envision yourself having, and you'd be like, man, people that have those conversations, so boring. And then I find myself on a Friday night having drinks with a friend, and we're just talking about spreadsheets and how we both really like them and how it helps us stay organized. And it just for me, it is the way in which I can really start to visualize the goals from a business perspective, and kind of brain dump it out so that I'm not worried about it, constantly distracted by it, as I kind of like pursue the things I want to do. And there are audiobooks that I do because I would like to get paid to do audiobooks. And there are audiobooks that I do because I love doing the story. I love doing the characters in the book, that the pay may not be what I would normally like it to be, but the art of making the book is much more exciting than anything else. And like the spreadsheet allows me to assess how far into one area I can go, or need to go as it is. Like, looking at, okay, great, this was the goal number for the year. We're more or less on pace for that. This is the work that's booked. Great. I can do this lower paying, more exciting project, and not suddenly be like, I can't go on vacation later this year because I did not
Right.
make the money that I needed to make. And kind of doing those things. And similarly, being able to feel secure through other work that the basic expenses are covered. Now it's also much more freedom of choice being built that way. Whereas 10 years ago I was not thinking that way. I was just thinking, what's the project I want to do? Yeah, we'll figure out food later. And so being able to kind of like evolve that thinking of uh looking at the goals, setting the goals, and then using a spreadsheet in my case to make sure I'm on target for that goal.
Yeah, I think we get set on different kind of goals and we forget that we should have some slightly different priorities. Now, don't get me wrong, I personally do not care to make spreadsheets, but I do appreciate a good spreadsheet when it provides all the information that I need.
Yeah.
I married a guy who was like, Excel is his love language kind of thing. So, I've got him. He's my pragmatic business side of the brain. And I have learned a lot over the years. I've always owned my own business. It hasn't always been the creative business, but I've always owned my own business. And so he's always been the business thinker, the business mind, and he will make a spreadsheet and be like, listen, you are investing these resources and this is how much you're getting paid for your time. And it's usually like pennies on the dollar kind of thing. Like my time is, I don't really take into account my time because I love doing what I do so much most of the time. And so I am thankful for those spreadsheets. They do kind of provide that eagle eye view too, that says, hey, this is where you are now, but look at where you could be if things continue down this path. So I can understand a good Excel if you need to.
Yeah. And just on that, like understanding the value of your time, like regardless of how you ultimately use that information, like you can make the choice that this is paying me significantly less than my regular or desired hourly rate, but there's all of these other reasons that I'm doing this. And so that doesn't matter. Or understanding the opportunity cost of I can't do something else that feeds my soul in all of these other ways. So I need to make sure that the hourly I'm going to get on it is worth giving up those things. And kind of being able to make that cost benefit analysis, to use a lovely econ term, is important for everybody, no matter what you're ultimately pursuing.
Oh, absolutely. And time it has a value. Like it doesn't have to be even a dollar value, but like you're saying, like what are you giving up? I know that like for the month of August, I scheduled all of my podcast interviews for the month of August. And then I will spend the rest of, August and September editing and posting and all of that good stuff. And so when my friend was like, hey, how about this audiobook? I didn't really take into account some of the other stuff I had going on. And so I was like, and it's a favor. It's not like I'm doing it, I'm not getting paid necessarily for it. It's but I have a value of my time. And so you have to draw those boundaries and draw those lines and say, this is what I am willing to give up. This is what I am not willing to give up. So let's shift gears and talk about your venture into audiobook narration. I did not learn the value and joy of audiobooks until probably the last year. Like, I hate to be that way. Like, I was one of those snobs who, because I love reading, I love being in the page, and my brain does function differently when I listen to a book versus when I read a book. Like, I see it and hear it differently. But my husband has a mild form of dyslexia. And so I never encouraged audiobooks. It was never one of those things. They weren't easy to get a hold of either. They were always expensive before the libraries and stuff really got onto the bandwagon. And so we started getting into audiobooks, and now he has books going all the time. And so now as an author, I see the firsthand importance of audiobooks, both for readers and just also reaching a broader audience, that kind of thing. So what got you into audiobook narration?
So yeah, audiobook narration was really born out of being an actor and buying some better self-tape equipment. This was about 7 years ago, kind of before everybody was definitely doing self-tapes for everything. And buying a like basic shotgun mic, thinking like in grad school maybe we'll mess around, we'll make a short film or something. And then I was like, well, I've got the mic. What else can I do with it? And I love to read. So let's try some audiobooks and kind of go from there. And similarly, I was not a listener of audiobooks at the time. Definitely was a big reader, but not a listener to audiobooks. And so kind of diving in from that perspective and saying, how do I get paid to read? And doing a bunch of books for free early on, and saying like, I really enjoy doing this. Let's continue to get better and kind of start to set some goals. And slowly reinvesting and upgrading the equipment and all of that. And now it's definitely one of the primary ways in which I feel expressive as an artist, is going into audiobooks. I think the same thing that I love about directing theater, I love about doing audiobooks, in like working with writers, working with texts, and kind of saying, okay, how do we elevate and extend what is on the page into the audio format, or in the case of directing theater, on the stage, in the best way that honors the story and meets the author intention. And one of the best parts about audiobooks is that 95% of the time you're actually working directly with the writer, which is not always the case as a theater director. And so you can have those conversations of, okay, here's what I'm seeing on the page. What did you actually intend in this moment? And then how can I marry that in my performance?
You have a great voice for audiobooks. Like I could listen to you read a book and I wouldn't, because there are some voices that I have literally stopped listening to a book because I couldn't get on board with the actor's voice. So kudos to you for that. That works out very nicely in your case.
Thank you. Yeah.
Is there a genre and or a format that you love to narrate more than others?
I really love doing nonfiction books first, just because I find them interesting, and I end up learning that I didn't know. That does also then sometimes make them challenging. I did a machine learning textbook, which involved a whole slew of math terms that I do not have the first sense at all of what those math concepts actually are and how to understand them. And then from there, I really like doing in the world of fiction, like spy thrillers and kind of the what would be the dream roles as an actor, who doesn't want to play a spy in a movie. And so this way I get to play both the spy and the chief villain, which is just a delight. And so having that good of a time with those genre of books.
That's awesome. So has there been an experience where you thought this was probably not the best book for me to read, aside from like fiction book? Let's go fiction book, because obviously the mathematic book, I would be like, these words are foreign language to me. But like, has there been an experience where you've been like, oh, you know what, this probably was not the book for me, but you did it anyway?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's definitely been some books that just from a writing perspective have been like, this is rough. This is hard to get through performance wise, and maybe I should not have taken this project on. And then there's also been some books that kind of have lived in the memoir category, where I think if I had been making the choice, I would not have chosen myself. And those are interesting situations, because I'm like, I at no point hid who I was, hid my identity, and the author themselves chose me. And so I guess I have to respect that choice, that there was something that they recognized in me, that they wanted my voice to tell their story, and so away we go. But I certainly maybe wouldn't have made the same choice if I was producing the book in a vacuum.
Gotcha. Have you found that and maybe it's obvious, maybe it's not, have you found that maybe more self-published books are harder than traditionally published books to narrate? Have you had that experience?
I think the only difference that I've found is the potential level of editing that has happened. And not even like big huge things, but like some of the punctuation stuff in those books, where it becomes harder to decipher the sentence construction as intended.
Yeah.
And like the story is great, the story makes
Right.
sense, there aren't like big plot holes or anything like that that an editor would catch as well, but it is some of that little minor detail stuff that it because there's more support in traditionally published,
Mhm.
that gets caught and that gets taken care of. But then there are also plenty
Yeah.
of independent authors that run it through the same number of editors that they would have run it through.
Yes, and that is why I even bring that up, because one of my biggest like pet peeves is I don't care if you have the ugliest cover design, if you don't have a cover, whatever, pay for an editor if you are a
Yeah.
self-published author. So that's just me getting on a soapbox and asking because, as a self-published author, if I want my book narrated, it needs to be the absolute best it can possibly
Mhm.
be for everyone involved. So yeah, self-published authors get an editor, a good
Yeah,
one,
definitely,
pay for
because
it.
then sometimes your audiobook narrator becomes one of your editors, and then we end up going back and forth as well of like, now that I've heard this out loud, I needed to change this. I'm
Mhm.
like, yeah, I guess we're gonna redo these chapters. But an editor probably would have caught this for you.
On the front
Um,
end, exactly,
yeah.
and time has value.
Hmm.
So,
Exactly.
yeah. So one of the biggest challenges aside from, like, learning and mastering the business of being a creative is staying relevant in this, like, fast-paced world with even faster-paced technology,
Hmm.
and I know for me as an author, one of the dangers just kinda lurking behind the curtain is artificial intelligence, and it's a topic of, like, growing interest that I just wanted to get your opinion on as an audiobook narrator. Like, have you seen it, felt threats from it, or anything like that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't feel particularly threatened by the AI voice narrators. Certainly, there are a couple of platforms that I'm on where they're slowly rolling out the ability to make your own version of your AI voice, and that is definitely something that I will do because I do think it has a space in the world of audio in thinking about like uh you know various accessibility issues. Like if we can get better versions of the audio versions of articles and things that don't make sense at a scale to actually have a person narrate everything that's in the New York Times every day. But if we can get a better voice available that is smarter and is easier, then that can kind of like end in a way that gets the original creator of that voice, some form of compensation, uh, then great. That's a great use of the technology. Similar with authors of no, ChatGPT should not write your next novel, but you can shorten up the like brainstorming and initial writing phase tremendously with
Yes.
it. But the writing that is produced is is not ready for humans to read
No.
without a human actually going through and writing it. Similarly, full length novels, full and books with deeper meaning, um, require a nuance that large language models don't possess. One reason I like my spreadsheets looking at the business is that the data doesn't allow for a lot of nuanced interpretation. It just is. And that's how large language models approach the creative acts. It just is. And that can be good for some things, good for a lot of tools, but I don't feel I feel excited about the ways in which it can shorten up the creative process for artists and kind of alleviate some of that lift, some of that burden of initial creation that then allows somebody, much more time, much more space, much more energy to elevate their writing or their work to be the next great American novel.
Yeah, I love ChatGPT for a lot of reasons, but you are right. Like it is a tool. It is definitely
Mm-hmm.
not the end all be all answer to anything. And I was talking to an entertainment lawyer just a couple of days ago, and we were talking about the dangers of AI being used and what that looks like with legal ramifications, because there have been some authors who have run into some issues with AI being used for and against their work. And she said, yeah, there are some lawsuits coming up that say, if your work, they find out that your work was generated by Chat GPT, for example, and you use verbatim what it says, that is a form of plagiarism, which I thought was crazy wild to think
Mm-hmm.
about, because I'm like, it was computer generated, but at the same time, it's not your original work. And so you have to be so careful when it comes to that, making sure that you do lose the human touch, when you're
Yeah.
just using a computer anyway. But yeah, you have to be really careful what tools you use and how you use them.
And it's like, I even think about, like, I was playing around with Chat GPT, and I was like, write me an outline for a Hallmark movie where
Mhm.
this thing happens. And just even reading it, you're like, yeah, this is like 70% of a Hallmark movie, but there's something. And like, don't get me wrong, I love watching Hallmark movies, but they're not great cinema.
Mhm.
And even that, like, ChatGPT is falling short of finding
Right.
like the whatever the human element is that makes a Hallmark movie a Hallmark movie. It
Yes.
just, it isn't there.
That is so true. I did see a thing. I was on TikTok this morning, wasting time like I probably shouldn't have been. But anyway, it was wild. And sometimes I think there are too many artificial intelligences connected, because it was literally a video about how they have improved emotional inflection in AI, in the voices and in the narration that's being provided to, and I thought, that's that's interesting, because I can't listen to the Siri voice reading to me. Like, we'll sit there and
Mm-hmm.
let it read a document to me, and I'm like, I pay no attention to it. So the fact that they've even come that far with the human inflection. So you're not really afraid of that taking your position, your place in the audiobook world or anything like that?
Not really, because I think that even as you get the emotional inflection, like the individual sentence timing, um, and the amount of work that has to go into, the English language is impossible
That's true.
for so many reasons. And understanding that, like, the difference between, that that was pretty good, like those double words, and like finding the right way to
Right.
do them, and understanding how to play with that timing. I just think where it's either an impossible challenge to solve, or it's not a worthwhile challenge to solve, because I don't know what efficiencies you're really gaining over just hiring somebody to do the book.
That is true. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. What else you want to talk about?
Oh man. I think the other thing that we can kind of touch on in that is things like podcasting. Um, in I host a couple of different podcasts, and that's also an area that, ChatGPT, artificial intelligence, like, could potentially get into, but
Mhm.
is it's all about the human element. And I think that we can look at various podcasting platforms, and the success of podcasting being, not quite what Spotify imagined it would be, but the desire for that human audio content, the fact that talk radio has never died,
Mhm.
that that keeps things safe, I think, in a lot of ways, that, like, humans want to connect with humans. And as much as the big tech companies try and mimic the human experience, the human interactive experience, it is ultimately, you're left feeling pretty empty.
Oh yeah, that is a very valid point. And we want everything so personalized. Everybody wants things
Mhm.
personalized. And I mean, that's you can't personalize a computer. I mean, whatever you put into it is what you get out of it. That's as personal as it gets.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay, so what is the one piece of advice or encouragement you would want listeners to walk away with today?
I mean, the cliche thing I want to say is, like, just do it. Just get out there, do the thing that you
It's
want to
valid.
do.
Hmm.
But I think that I'm going to make it slightly more nuanced, and I'm going to say, figure out what you need to take care of to just do it. Whether that is, I need to find a new job because I don't have, I'm just completely burnt by this job, and I can't get the headspace creatively to do things after work, or before work. And for so many, that's the time you're going to have, is the time before and after work. And so if you aren't in a job that allows you the headspace, the relaxation, the open ability to make creative content, then that's step one, is not start writing the novel. It's, what do I need to change in life that I'm not so daunted by the blank page, by the amount of time I'm about to pour into this thing, that I actually want.
Ooh, so start planning now for the future that you want. I mean, that's, and it sounds so easy. And I know that, a lot of times we look at it and we're like, yeah, I know what I want. I just need to be able to get there and right now. So maybe even if you can't just immediately make those changes, just find a way to leave work at work. Cause I know that I'm guilty of that sometimes, bringing work home with me. Yeah. Yeah. Creating the headspace, though, I think is a really great piece of advice. Like, create that space where you can be the creative that you've always wanted to be. Oh yeah. All right, Alex, tell us, where can we connect with you and your work?
Yeah, check out my website, asfreeman.net. You'll see my directing there, my audiobooks there, my podcasts there. And I'm lately on Threads. That's been my social media platform of choice. Alex_S_Freeman, which is also my Instagram handle, because that's how Threads works.
Right.
But yeah, I'm primarily, I have migrated away from Twitter and X, and have found my scrolling time on Threads. So come check me out there.
I am so tired of adding different social media platforms. Like, I don't know how to keep up with them, but yes, Threads is the new thing. So we'll make sure that all of that ends up in the show notes so that people can come find you. They can follow you. Is there anything else you want to leave us with?
No, I mean, it just, don't ever feel like you're selling out if you're doing something for money. Unfortunately, we live in capitalism, and so we got to eat, we got to have shelter, we got to have fun. All of those things are important to recharging your creative juices. And so understanding and taking control of the business side of it, which includes your day job, whether or not it's connected to the art that you want to make, is just so vitally important, so that you can create the next great piece of art.
Good stuff. Well, thank you so much for being here today and being part of this conversation. I know that there was a little bit of something for everyone who listened. Like, this, you can't walk away from today's conversation and go, that didn't mean anything to me. I think there's something for all the creatives out there in some form or fashion.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me, Jennifer. It was a wonderful time.
Authors, if you're looking for resources to help you write better stories and more relatable characters, visit my website, jcarwrites.com/authors.